When a city decides it wants to host the Olympic Games, it's about so much more than just a 2-week sporting event. It's really a declaration of ambition, a massive, high-stakes gamble to completely reshape its future on the world stage. So what does it really mean to chase that Olympic dream?
It's a question that goes way beyond just building some stadiums and tracks. We're talking about infrastructure, economics, the will of the people, and proving to the entire world that your city is ready for the ultimate spotlight. In this explainer, we're going to break that very question down using a real-world case study.
And this quote right here from the Journal of Humanities and Tourism Research, it just hits the nail on the head. The Olympics are a massive catalyst, a once-in-a-generation shot at total urban, social, and economic transformation. I mean, the stakes just couldn't be any higher. So why do cities fight so hard for this? Well, it's because a successful games can basically cram decades of development into just a few short years. It's all about pulling in investment, boosting tourism for years to come, and creating this global brand that lasts long, long after the closing ceremony. But this dream has a serious flip side. On one hand, yeah, you've got the promise of urban renewal and incredible infrastructure. But on the other, you've got the nightmare scenario of crippling debt and those infamous white elephants. These massive, expensive venues that are just left to rot. The line between the two? It's all in the planning. Now, the International Olympic Committee, the IOC, they recognize these risks, and they introduced a major overhaul to the whole bidding process. And this wasn't just some small tweak, okay? This was a complete philosophical shift designed to make hosting way more sustainable and accessible. They call it the new norm, and it's essentially a brand new rulebook with 118 reforms, all aimed at preventing that nightmare scenario. The goal is pretty simple. Slash costs, give cities more flexibility, and bake the idea of a long-term positive legacy right into the process from day one.
So, this new way of thinking really boils down to a few key things. The IOC is now actively telling cities, hey, use venues you already have, or build temporary ones. They want them to lower operating costs and, crucially, to have a long-term legacy plan from the very start. The big takeaway is this: no more building for building's sake. All right, so this new rulebook was immediately put to the test for the 2026 Winter Olympics bid. 4 cities initially jumped into what the IOC calls the dialogue phase, and each of them came to the table with a totally unique vision and its own set of challenges. And here they are. You've got the heavyweights, Milan Cortina in Italy, Stockholm RA in Sweden, and Calgary in Canada. All of them have hosted the Olympics before. And then you've got the newcomer, the underdog with a really bold vision, Erzurum, Turkey. Erzurum's bid is just a fascinating case study. It's all about ambition versus readiness under these new IOC rules. They had this powerful dream, but as we're about to see, it ran headfirst into the pretty harsh realities of the IOC's tough new evaluation process. Let's start with Erzurum's greatest asset, because this is incredible. Look at this, 95% public support within the city. That is just astronomical. It was the highest of all the contenders, and it showed this deep, passionate desire to bring the games home. This is exactly what the IOC loves to see. But then, the problems start, and they start with a fundamental gap in infrastructure. The IOC requires a minimum of 24,000 hotel rooms. Erzurum? They had less than half that, at just 11,500. Their plan to make up the difference relied on student dorms and hotels nearly 200 kilometers away, which, you can imagine, is a major logistical headache. And the gaps, well, they didn't stop there. When it came to proven experience, the difference was just stark. I mean, look at this. In the last 10 years, Canada and Italy had each hosted over 150 major international winter sports events. Sweden had hosted 75, and Turkey, just 6. This lack of real-world operational experience was another massive red flag for the IOC. And right here, this is the final decisive factor. Erzurum's bid was 100% publicly funded. It relied completely on government guarantees from a national economy that the IOC's own reports called unstable. Now, compare that to the other bids, which were almost entirely privately funded and backed by stable, highly developed economies. For the IOC, which is very risk-averse, this was just too big of a gamble to take. So, in the end, Erzurum was not invited to the final candidate stage. But the story doesn't end there. Actually, the analysis of its bid gives us a super clear blueprint for any aspiring host city on how you can turn a setback like this into a long-term winning strategy. The key takeaway is this. Instead of going for the gold medal right away, the recommended path is a much more patient, step-by-step approach. You start small. Host smaller, lower-risk events to build up that crucial experience. Then, you make smart investments in infrastructure that actually align with the city's own long-term goals. The advice is to think in terms of decades, not just a few years, and maybe aim for a more achievable target first, something like the Youth Olympic Games. Which brings us to our final question. For a city like Erzurum, is the Olympic dream really worth a patient, strategic, maybe even 30-year journey? Well, the new reality of Olympic bidding suggests that for a lot of cities out there, the slow and steady path might be the only way to actually win the race.